I really didn't like English. I hated English. It was always that subject that I was just getting average scores. It's that thing that you always repeat to yourself, like, I'm not an English person, I'm just a maths person, I'm just a science person.
That limiting belief, how did that affect you in terms of before year 12?
It wasn't really up until like the holidays between year 11 and year 12 where I realized, like, damn, like, English is something that I need to lock in on because it was obviously something that's going to be in my top 4. One thing I realized immediately is English is actually a subject you can improve on.
Hey there, welcome to English Maxing, where we max out your academic performance in VCE English. Today, I'm going to be interviewing our head of curriculum, Abhi, and how he went from failing to getting a Rule 47 study score in VCE English. So, Abhi, you want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Abhi. I graduated in 2024 with a Rule 47 study score in English. And as Josh said, I struggled a lot with English. I was someone who didn't really like English, but I got a Rule 47 study score. So today we're going to be going through that.
Tell us your story, your context a little bit.
Basically up until year 12, like year 11, year 10, year 9. Well, basically my whole of high school, I really didn't like English. I hated English. It was always that subject that I was just getting average scores, and then I really liked maths, science. Those were the subjects I really excelled in. But yeah, it wasn't really up until like the holidays between year 11 and year 12 where I realized, like, damn, like, English is something that I need to lock in on because it was obviously something that's going to be in my top 4. So yeah, that's when I obviously started trying a lot. And one thing I realized immediately is English is actually a subject you can improve on. It's a subject where if I actually put the effort in, I focus on what are the things I'm doing, the systems and things like that, I can actually do well.
Talk me a little bit through that. Like, you had that limiting belief, you would say, that you were more of a math student. And I'm sure like a lot of year 12s have that same issue where they think, okay, math, as something that I prefer. English is like something that, you're either born naturally good at it or you're not. And you obviously believe that you would be like, oh, English isn't my talent or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So that limiting belief, how did that affect you in terms of like before year 12? Were you studying English? Did you just like never put in any effort?
I think it definitely is the limiting belief part of it. Like, it's that thing that you always repeat to yourself, like, I'm not an English person. Like, I'm just a maths person. I'm just a science person. As a result of that, I can't get good at English. So yeah, it definitely was a limiting belief. It was that kind of like psychological thing where I was like, I'm never going to be good at English. There's always just going to be people that are naturally good at it. So yeah, it was definitely something that took a long time for me to overcome. Whether it was just, trying to gain some like evidence, some momentum that I could actually do something with English, that I could improve. And I think, that is probably my biggest tip for students in a similar position to me, where you just feel as though English is not your thing. Try get some evidence, or try see some progression in your English skill, and that start where you can just provide yourself that confidence and that conviction that you can actually improve. That is that starting that will actually help you skyrocket a lot. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Awesome. Nice. So yeah, I guess you went through that whole phase where you used to think that English wasn't your subject. You'd have that limiting belief, but then eventually, like, you found proof and you built a lot of evidence that you can increase your skills in English. It is a skill, just like math, just like science, and like you sort of detach your learning from your identity. So it's not, oh, I'm not an English person. It's
Exactly.
more of a, I just don't have the English skills yet. But like once you detach it from your identity to the skills, then you realize if it is just a bunch of skills, like how to write an essay, then you can learn it, you can improve on it. And yeah, I mean, that's really good. So that's obviously one of the main components to how you got from failing to doing real well, was you first understood that English is a skill that you can improve on. So that's obviously number one. You got to break that limiting belief. You got to, have the right mindset, the right approach to studying. This will actually allow you to start studying and actually start seeing improvements. But in order to be more practical about that, I guess for the year 12s watching this as well, how we can actually look to build the English skills needed to get that high study score. What are some of the practical things you did?
Practical things I did after realizing that English is a skill that anybody can improve on is reverse engineering the high scoring essays. So literally this was a thing that, as I mentioned in the year 11 holidays, from going from year 11 to year 12, I'll look at the high scoring essays and see what they did well. Because what I realized is that kind of not like a subject like maths or biology or psychology or whatever, where the thinking of a high scoring student isn't there, like the evidence isn't like there of their high thinking abilities. English is like the essays are right over there. Like you can literally see what they're thinking, what they're doing. And if you're able to observe all those right things, then you literally have a blueprint in your brain of what you need to do. And you become aware of all the things that you actually need to switch in your brain, the things that you actually need to keep working on. So for instance, I would look at these essays. I would see, how were they starting sentences? Was it, did they have really good flow? Was it the vocab that was actually a common thing within these essays? Was it, the way they embedded quotes and things like that? Took apart all those things, made it into individual skills, and just basically started experimenting, started writing about it. I think just holding yourself accountable and just writing, even though you feel like you're really bad at it, I think that's the main thing. So just start writing on those little individual things and start working on it.
Yeah, for practical things, just started on writing, and even if you start off like not so good, over time you will get a lot better. And then that actual seeing the progress that you make, that you use that as evidence that you are improving, and of course that'll increase your confidence. That'll also help you stay motivated to keep working even more, and then you see even more results. The reverse engineering part, like talk us a little bit on that. So you get a high scoring essay, you just find one online, right? And when you reverse engineer, like what exactly are you looking for in that essay?
It's obviously like you're obviously trying to zoom in and you're trying to look at the specific things. Like as I mentioned before, you're looking at the vocab, you're looking at the way they start sentences and things like that. But I think another good thing that you have to try observe when you're looking at these essays is you want to really try zoom out as well. What I mean by zooming out is thinking about like the bigger picture. Like what is the actual reason why these essays do well? And that's because more often than not, the people writing the essays, they have a really good understanding on the text. They understand like how to actually answer the question from a very like basic level. Like they could probably like explain it to like a 10-year-old or something. Like whatever they're writing down, they can explain at a very intuitive level. So understanding like the sequence of their ideas, the sequence of their thinking, what's actually going on in their brain that is leading them to writing a high scoring essay is the things I was thinking about. So again, to answer that question, I think it's really about zooming into those little things, those very specific things, but at the same time zooming out, seeing what is the actual bigger picture, or what is the bigger reason to why they're able to get high marks.
Okay, so we have a few questions that we wanted to ask you in terms of like, for the year 12 that is watching this and maybe a little bit stressed out about English, wants to do well, but doesn't really know how. Let's go over each of the sections, section A, section B, section C, and some like main pieces of advice that you would give to a year 12 out there. Let's start with text response. What's like the number one thing you'd say in terms of preparing for text response?
Number one thing for text response?
Yeah.
I think I can't say one thing. I can't say one like big thing. I'm going to split it into two parts because there definitely is two parts. The first thing is just knowing the text like from bottom to top. And yeah, that is basically all the ideas I was saying before. Without the idea, without the actual intent yourself in answering the question, understanding the question so deeply, your writing, no matter how polished it sounds, no matter how good you sequence your ideas and things like that, the writing, the ideas have to be really good. So understanding the text, that'll be the first thing. And the second thing is your writing skills. So your ability to translate, those wonderful ideas you have into actual writing. And yeah, you obviously develop that skill through just a lot of practice and things like that. So two things I would condense section A into.
So understanding the text and developing your writing skills as well. Yeah, okay. So how about for crafting text?
Crafting text. So obviously crafting text is a little bit of a unique one since it's crafting something unique to you, something that's individual, and everyone is going to defer on the idea they produce and things like that, the story, whether it's a speech, opinion piece, narrative, or whatever. I'd say the main thing for crafting text is making something unique to you, or making something that you think you're able to express in a very clear way, because section B is another way of examiners being able to assess your clarity, how clearly you can actually think. And yeah, I used to be a student who just thought of section B like section A and section C, where I could just spam a lot of writing, just get really good at writing and expect good results. But it's actually the idea, as I was saying for section A, emphasizing the idea, but the idea for section B is actually like way more important. I think it also says in the VCA examiner report, like the main thing that examiners were looking for and something that they celebrated was individuality and how unique you are. So what I would encourage you guys to do is literally try find something, like it doesn't have to be from your own life, but something that you just really resonate with. So think about your framework and think about something within that framework you really resonate with. Try bring that idea into your own inspiration, into your own writing, and then obviously you can work on the other things that we were talking about with section A, refining your writing and things like that, but that only comes after the whole idea side of things comes out. So overall, just be very unique with your writing and you should be good for section B.
So individuality is really good for section B, like as unique as you can be and how much you resonate with your idea. I would say, yeah, that's definitely a main part to section B, because when you have the conviction behind what you are writing, when you really do feel and resonate with the idea, naturally you start, using all of these techniques that you wouldn't even need to think about. But because of that conviction you have, it just flows out nicely.
Exactly. And the comparison that sometimes I tell some of my students is like, if you write something you're passionate about, let's just say I'm passionate about cars or something like that. Obviously, I'm going to be able to write in way more detail and with way more passion. And that's the thing with voice, projecting your voice. You're going to sound a lot more authentic if you write about something you actually enjoy, you like about, compared to if I wrote something about like, I don't know, my family or like...
You don't love your family?
Not that I don't like my family, but like, something more boring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mean like that.
I know the type of man you are now. You're not a family. But all jokes aside, yeah, like I also like the idea of, or the analogy of like, love songs or like heartbreak songs. The songwriter in that moment is really feeling the emotion, and so they come with a really beautiful lyrics or melodies that you listen to these songs and you be like, wow, these are such amazing songs. But it's because the artist behind it was really feeling the emotion and the, I guess, idea, that it just naturally came out like that. So yeah, having that same principle applied to your section B writing would be really good. So yeah, that's absolute gold for section B right there. So let's move on then to the final section, the argument analysis.
Section C. So argument analysis, honestly, like I did not like argument analysis. Did you like argument analysis?
I loved argument analysis. Actually, yeah, it's my favorite one.
Yeah, I liked argument analysis in the way that, like, compared to like section B, obviously there's a little bit more structure, there's repetition. So you can go into the exam feeling a lot more confident with it. Like, I'm pretty sure teachers, we recommend doing section C first. It's that one that you can just like, get down, annotate it, do it straight away. But for section C, if I was to boil it down, I think the main thing or the main thing you want to focus on to achieve high marks in section C is to get really good at understanding intent and understanding the different ways in which an author can position somebody to feel, or the effect that they're having in very specific ways. Because what a lot of students do is, of course, they introduce the evidence and they explain the effect, but they don't explain the effect or, the ways the audience is being positioned in nuanced ways. And that explanation is essentially what is going to separate you from like a 6 to 8 to that obviously 8 to 10 range, is how nuanced your explanation is. And that only comes with a lot of practice. So that's why I emphasize with section C, literally just do a lot of practice, get a lot of feedback, and you'll be good. Those persuasive techniques, obviously they matter, but I would say the nuanced explanation of those actual techniques is what's going to get you far. So that's what I want you guys to think about for section C.
Overall, every section we kind of covered in length, like some of your best advice for each section for the year 12s that are watching this. And overall, like in terms of your SACs, in terms of your exams, like with English, how important is it to do well in your SAC compared to like your exam?
So obviously you get this question a lot, I bum my SAC. Yeah, can I still do well in my exam?
Yeah.
I think obviously SACs do play a role in your study score and things like that, but you shouldn't definitely be overwhelmed by a bad SAC score or anything like that. I'd like I like to think of SACs kind of like a tool to improve and figure out two different things. So there's skill gaps and knowledge gaps. Knowledge gaps is what I was saying with those ideas, and this is for students who are falling a little bit more behind. Most students have the ideas done, but sometimes it might be hard to get those. You might not be as proficient with those ideas. But the second thing is obviously the skills. So what are the specific skills that are preventing you to do well in SACs? So I think if you can identify those skill barriers as you go along in your SACs, you will eventually improve, you will get better. So I wouldn't say get too overwhelmed with your SAC score and things like that, but you definitely want to be getting in, somewhat of a good rank within your school, because if you want to get a good study score, you have, especially if you want a 40+ study score, you should be amongst the high achieving students within your class. So what I recommend is try know the students in your school who are doing well, and you think that they're going to get a 40+, literally talk with them, understand what are their SAC scores, are you getting similar to them, and that will give you a good idea on what you should be achieving, because that's better than just blindly thinking, I'm on track for a raw 40 study score, I'm just going to clutch up in the exam. That's just leaving it to luck. You want to do well in your SACs and you want to do well in your exam, that's going to boost your chances of getting a good study score.
Yeah, that's really good. And obviously, if you are getting 70s, 80s on your SACs, then you still have a good 20 to 30%
exactly
to still improve on.
It's improvement. If you're getting less, that means you just have more skills or knowledge gaps to improve on.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to get as close to that 100% as possible to give you the best chances of performing high in the exam.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys got a lot from that. Hope you guys were able to take notes and really apply some of this for your Year 12 VCE. We know how important English is for your ATAR. If you are looking to get a high ATAR, then English matters a lot. And we also know that it can be stressful. English can be stressful. There's a lot of lack of clarity in terms of how you approach a subject, how you study the subject. And so comment below what you'd like to see a video on. We're here to help you guys max out your academic performance in English. All right, that's been us here at English Maxing. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys on the next video.